If you're here, if you've clicked on this video, I'm assuming you, like many of us, say yes to stuff that you don't want to say yes to, and then you feel resentful and you feel angry with yourself. But the thought of saying no to stuff makes you feel so guilty that you just don't want to deal with it. If this is the case, I want to tell you, you're not alone. Hi, my name is Sarah. I am a media studies student. I am by no means a psychologist, and I am just sharing my experiences. I first want to share my story and how I realized I was a big people pleaser. Back in the day, there weren't this many information, so I never realized that there is something wrong with me, or I am doing something wrong, or something needs to change. At that point, it was a normal thing to me, and I thought everyone goes through that. Whenever I came back from visiting friends or family, I always felt emotionally drained and very tired, and I always felt obligated to do a lot of stuff. A lot of it had to do with my culture. We always put selflessness with being a good person together. They are equated. It was my first year of university and I was working part-time as a translator. I remember I was helping someone with a really big project, when at the same time I needed rest and I needed to be working on my own exam. They needed help with their bachelor thesis thingy. It was a very specific field that I needed to translate, and I didn't know a lot. I didn't know anything about it. I even went online and I researched and I read articles about what they needed to be translated so that I can translate it the best I can, even though I could have just left it to their level of English or understanding because it was their job. I did the best job that I could. I felt very resentful at the end. That was the moment when it clicked for me because I was the most tired. It was like rock bottom for me in that area. I always found saying no very rude and very selfish. I was very bad with rejection, with seeing someone disappointed in me, or with confronting someone. So I just let everything slide under the rug and I never confronted anyone about anything. Let's look at the root causes of this condition. It always starts in your childhood. A child doesn't know better. A child always wants to survive and have emotionally and mentally the best environment possible. So if this child grows up in a situation that the parents can't handle with their own emotions, and then they make the situation look like it's the child's job to parent the parents, the child always creates a survival kit for themselves. I don't remember much from my childhood, but I remember that I always felt like it was my job to keep everyone happy. I felt like if I was the best kid, I was best at doing the chores. Like there was a lot going on and I didn't just want to add to the pile with my own negative emotions or with my needs. I always felt the need to cooperate, to be happy, to always have no needs, basically. I was a chubby teenager, so I wasn't like the fittest. I had my growth hormones a lot faster than the others, and I always felt ashamed about this. So whenever I was amongst my friends or among the kids from my school, I was like, if I'm not the prettiest, then I'm gonna be the best at house chores. I'm gonna be the best at getting the best grades. I'm gonna be the nicest. I'm gonna be the most helpful. So I always wanted to compensate for what I felt like I lacked. I tied a lot of my self-worth to how other people were feeling. And I have also seen that in a lot of other kids, that they feel like if mom and dad are not happy, then it's my job to change it. So I feel like for a lot of kids, it's a painful and big responsibility to uphold a harmony in their family, even though they still haven't developed the skills for that, and they get punished for showing their true emotions. So if they are angry, if they are upset, irritated by something, and they show their true emotions, they get punished for that. Long story short, I was feeling very resentful towards everyone, towards my family, towards my friends, because I felt like I always say yes. My needs are not heard, my needs are not cared for, and that was basically my fault because I wasn't communicating my needs. I realized that there's a pattern. The pattern was I said yes to everything. I couldn't say no to anything. I always felt anxious when setting boundaries with anyone, even my closest friends. I was constantly apologizing, even for the stuff that I didn't have any saying in the matter, I didn't have any control in. Avoided conflicts at all costs, even if it meant that my feelings and my needs get pushed under the rug. I didn't care. I just didn't want to confront anyone. And I always felt like I am responsible for managing other people's emotions. Like, if this person is sad about something, even though it has nothing to do with me, I always felt like I can fix everything. After I realized that there are these patterns that I'm always following, I realized I have to break these patterns, which was for me the hardest part of the process, because this meant that I am gonna lose friendships, I am gonna lose relationships, and also it meant that I am gonna lose the old me. I had to let her go, even though it was familiar, even though it was something that I had lived with my whole life. I needed to admit to myself that I needed a change. A lot of people who were there because of the favors that I was doing them weren't gonna be benefiting from the friendship or the relationship that they had with me. So that meant I'm gonna lose those relationships. So the first thing I did was reframe the word guilt for me. Guilt is something that I grew up with, and I had to work on a lot to realize what guilt actually means. I always thought guilt is the feeling that you get when you say no to someone. Instantly, when I said no to someone, I felt a feeling that I thought this is guilt. But then I realized guilt doesn't look like that for everyone. It doesn't always mean when you do something opposite of what someone expects you to do. It just means you're doing something different. It doesn't mean you should feel guilty. So I had to constantly ask myself, am I doing something wrong? Am I hurting someone? Or am I just doing something different? Which was hard. But at first, it's really needed because you don't know any different. You also constantly have to remind yourself, you're not being selfish. You are just being true. True to yourself and true to others. And also, your worth isn't tied to agreeing with everything. This was a game changer for me, that I don't need to be accepting everything and let everything happen for me to be worthy of being human. So for this to work, for this cycle to break, I had to go very small. So I started with my imagination. I started imagining a scenario in my head, and a very safe person, like a very close friend, asking me to do something or to go somewhere and say no. I had to practice that a lot for you to be able to change the neurons in your head and not constantly have this, yes, okay, I will do it. Of course, in order to change these neurons in your head, you have to give them a new pattern. For the new pattern, you need a different response, a response that is mindful and that does not come from a habit, a repetitive habit. So you have to create it. And in order to create it, if you don't feel confident enough or brave enough to actually do it with an actual person, I myself, for example, felt very more comfortable doing it in my head. And then also in reality, I tried it with this close friend of mine. The second thing that I tried, it's a really simple thing, but because your mind just works in a different way, you never think about it. And then when someone tells that to you, you're like, wow, I never thought about this. Like, this is, even though it seems so easy, but it just never comes to your mind. The thing that was really game changer for me was buying myself more time. So I was like, even though that I have worked on myself to say my true opinion, in the situations that someone put me on the spot and was like, hi, are you coming? I just couldn't say no at that moment, at that second when someone put me in the spot. I learned that I have to buy myself time. And I was like, okay, but can I think about it? So I wasn't saying no right away. I just let those bad negative feelings sink in and then think of a solution. Or maybe after they called and I hung up, I can write to them. Or I would if, for example, someone invited me to a party and I didn't really feel like going, or I felt better with like a just coffee date or like going out in the park, I would just reframe and say, what about catching a movie together sometime? So I wasn't saying no, but I still felt comfortable with the other option. Also, the thing that no one ever told me was that I can cut people out of my life. There were people who were really toxic, and I was like, what good is this person bringing to my life? So I had to let them go. It's okay if you don't feel okay with having someone in your life, and if you want to cut them completely out, or if you want to limit your relationship and the amount of time and energy that you put for them. After a couple of painful years that I had to make a lot of changes in my life, in my relationships, in how I behaved, becoming more mindful of what I'm saying, I could see a lot of good results that helped me with going on with the process, because I could not only focus how to answer and how to not instantly say yes to stuff, I could also focus on the good things that were coming into my life. One of the good things that I was really happy about was the fact that some people, despite me changing, stayed in my life. And that for me meant that they were really my people. They were the people who were supposed to be in my life. They were there for me, not because I did stuff for them. And I also found a lot of better friends only because I was true to myself, only because I was showing my truest emotions and what I needed and how I actually was. Another benefit that it had in my life was that I realized a lot of people respected me more because I had more healthy boundaries. It kind of naturally says that without saying that. If you always do stuff for others, it means you have no respect for yourself and you're like, I don't matter. So anything you ask, that matters. I'm going to do that. But anything I feel, anything I want doesn't matter. So as soon as you set boundaries for yourself, people instantly respect you more because you are also teaching them how to interact with you. Also, taking care of myself and not putting that much energy into the relationships and friendships that I didn't need, it meant that I had more mental clarity and mental energy to put for the relationships that really needed that, and I could nurture those relationships better and for my friendships to grow stronger. So after this, I realized people who genuinely care about you, they will also genuinely care about your needs. I right now am in a point in my life that I can say I am still struggling with sometimes with saying no, sometimes with expressing myself, but most of all with confrontation. The good thing is that I am always mindful about it. I am much more mindful about when my mind is tricking me into thinking something is guilt when it is not. It takes time. It takes time, so be patient with yourself, but always remember that prioritizing yourself is necessary. It's not just something that is good to do, you must do it. So I would recommend start with small boundaries, reflect on how it felt to say no, and remember that your worth isn't tied to agreeing with everything and doing stuff for other people. So one final thought, you can never pour from an empty cup. So the more and the better that you take care of yourself, you'll have more energy and spirit in you to give to others, and not out of guilt or obligation, but because you truly want to and enjoy being kind to other people. Be unapologetically you, because there's only one of you in this world.